Without objection, the amendment is considered as read. I reserve a point of order. The gentleman from New York is recognized for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment would strike all of the resolve clauses and the report, and it would insert language that details all of the extensive efforts to cooperate that Hunter Biden and his attorney have made in response to this committee's requests for testimony and information from him. That began in February when Chairman Comer wrote to request documents and communications related to our investigation of President Biden's involvement in your financial conduct. The following day, his attorney wrote back to Chairman Comer offering to sit down with the staff to discuss the request. Then, 7 months later, Chairman Comer goes on television and said he never got a response back from Hunter Biden, which is flat out false. And that day, Hunter Biden's attorney wrote again to Chairman Comer to say that he did respond. He never heard a response, but that he remains available to have a discussion. So next, without any response from the chairman, you went straight into a subpoena. The subpoena was for testimony, and the witness, Hunter Biden, has put no conditions or limitations on his testimony. There are no limits on the topics. There's no limits on the length of time. He's happy to do it under oath. He has said he would not assert the Fifth Amendment privilege, even though that's available to him. That's in stark contrast to Devon Archer, their star witness, who so narrowly limited the time and scope of his testimony that we could not ask him anything about any of his own criminal conduct. But the only request that Hunter Biden has made is that he wants to give his testimony in public, not behind a closed-door deposition where his transcript wouldn't be released. There's absolutely no certainty or guarantee that there would ever be a public hearing again, and I would bet a lot of money that you will never put him in that witness chair, whether or not he comes in. That's all he wanted, just to speak to the American people. He has not, unlike your dear leader, filed a lawsuit to prevent third parties from turning over financial information. In fact, you've received tens of thousands of bank records. The problem you have is not Hunter Biden's cooperation. It's that all of those bank records, which would show any connection between Hunter Biden and his father, if there were any, has zero money going from Hunter Biden to Joe Biden related to any of his business ventures. So your problem is that the evidence doesn't show what you say it does. It's not that he's not cooperating, so that's why we're here today, so that you can change the topic, can claim that there's some kind of obstruction, and therefore Hunter Biden really did do all of these terrible things, and Hunter Biden should be impeached. Oh, wait, no. It's not Hunter Biden who's being impeached here. Now, this is far worse because the chairman, as we've discussed many times, has multiple times offered Hunter Biden to come testify in public. So if you had wanted a closed-door deposition, I don't understand why you would go on TV, Mr. Chairman, and offer for Hunter Biden to come in and testify publicly, whichever he chooses. So why no public hearing? Why won't you have a public hearing? The only request, this is an incredibly cooperative witness. We've all dealt with many witnesses who put a lot of restrictions on their testimony. There's one request of Hunter Biden, which is to speak directly to the American people, not in a closed door to the Republicans who will control the release, the dissemination, and the misinformation from that testimony. Why not? Okay. Well, one of your own colleagues went on the House floor last fall and said that this impeachment investigation was, quote, failure theater, unquote. A Republican said that. So the theory here must be, let's avoid the theater part of that and just keep the failure behind closed doors. Last month, Hunter Biden showed up to the Capitol on the day that he was subpoenaed, ready to testify in this hearing room. You refused to take his testimony. That very same afternoon, you went on the House floor to vote for an impeachment resolution on the rationale that you needed to pass a resolution to get more evidence. You reject evidence in the morning, and then you cry foul about no evidence in the afternoon. He's ready to testify, and this is a dangerous precedent you're setting if every single line in every single subpoena must be adhered to, or you are going to hold in contempt. I know my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who defied subpoenas outright would be very afraid if that became the standard here. And I yield back.
And I'll recognize myself. I oppose this amendment. This amendment claims that Hunter Biden has cooperated with this committee's investigation. How has he cooperated with the investigation if he has not abided by a congressional subpoena? Abby Lowell has never discussed scope or logic with us, and we have identified at least 2 checks directly to Joe Biden where we traced the money directly through the Biden influence peddling schemes. That is a fact. We have published evidence. This isn't like Adam Schiff and the Steele dossier where you just make stuff up. We have produced bank records, and bank records don't lie. So Mr. Biden mocked our legitimate congressional impeachment inquiry and flew to D.C. to hang out outside of Congress and did not show his face for a deposition. He is not in compliance. He openly defied a congressional subpoena. Do any other members wish to speak on this amendment?
Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Mr. Raskin.
I want to yield back to Mr. Goldman. Before I do, I just want to pose a question to you. When you said that there was documented checks involving the president in an influence scheme, are you referring to the auto loan repayment checks between Joe and Hunter Biden?
You mean the Porsche he got from Uzbekistan? Which auto are you?
I don't know what kind of car, but are those the checks that you're referring to?
The checks we're referring to were a check for $200,000 that came through the influence peddling scheme with AmeriCorps Health, and the $40,000 check that came through the influence peddling scheme with China, where I believe Mr. Bobulinski has stated publicly was a company that Joe Biden was supposed to be 10% owner.
Okay, I'll reclaim my time. I think in both cases, I mean, there were a lot of words there, Mr. Chairman, but I think you're referring to the auto loan repayment with Hunter Biden. You're referring to the James Biden repayment. But if you've got documented receipts of foreign governments giving money directly to President Joe Biden, that's an outrageous violation of the Emoluments Clause, like the $7.8 million that Donald Trump pocketed while he was president, which for some reason you guys don't care about because you think the Constitution only applies to Democrats and not to Donald Trump because, hey, that's an identifying characteristic of an authoritarian political party. It's got a charismatic leader whose word is considered above the Constitution, above the rule of law. You refuse to accept the results of democratic elections that don't go your way if you're an authoritarian party. And then you refuse to disavow or you embrace political violence as an instrument for obtaining and maintaining political power. So you guys didn't like when President Biden said that your party under Donald Trump has fallen into semi-fascist ways of operation. If the shoe semi-fits, you semi-wear it, okay? Now, I'd like to yield back to Mr. Goldman.
Would the gentleman yield to a question?
Well, yeah, I'll take a quick question.
I just want to clarify. We have a wire that went directly from CEFC, which banks have identified as a state-owned entity from China. That this wire went from CEFC to Hunter Biden, then to Joe Biden for $40,000.
Okay.
Joe Biden has been directly implicated in the family influence peddling scheme at least 3 times.
No, you haven't. You have not. I've not ever seen that.
You have not produced
read the bank memo.
You have not produced
the 40,000 is for Jim Biden.
No. The 200,000 is from Jim Biden. The 40,000 is from Hunter Biden.
All right, but please produce the documentation.
We have it. We have 4 bank memorandums.
Give it to the members of this committee and
4 bank memorandums.
Okay, I'll reclaim my time, Mr.
There has never been a more substantive.
I'm saving my time. You go ahead, but I'm saving my time.
In the 7 years I've been in Congress.
All right, let me say this: the Democrats undertook a serious investigation, despite every effort by the chairman to undermine it, and we determined there were $7.8 million documented receipts from foreign governments to Donald Trump. You guys don't care about that. That's unfortunate.
Will the ranking member yield?
But if you've got documented...
Will the ranking member yield?
Yeah, we will in just a moment. Let me make my point, okay? If you have documented receipts of foreign governments writing checks or giving credit card payments to Joe Biden. Show it to us. We've been at this for a year now. We haven't seen anything. Then we show you in our more than 100-page report the documented receipts of money going to Donald Trump, but you don't care about it. In other words, you don't care about the principle that our government leaders should not be on the take from foreign governments. That's outrageous. Well, because I will oppose any government official of any political party who's on the take with money from foreign governments, and I hope you would join me in that. And yet we've shown it to you, and yet you guys don't care about it. I mean, that's just unfathomable to me. Now, at least the Trump family has responded to it. Well, I mean, they're very nervous about it. You know what Trump said? The Trump's people say, well, he didn't take his $400,000 government salary. You know what? That's the only thing you're allowed to take is your salary from Americans, not money from corrupt Saudi monarchs who order the assassination of journalists, not from Chinese communist bureaucrats crushing the human rights of people in Tibet and the Uyghurs. You're not supposed to be on the take from those governments. That's what our Constitution says. Then they say, well, we return the profits. These guys think it's, well, if it's a hotel, they could just keep the money. At least the Trump family understands. Some lawyer told them what the Constitution says. We return the profits. Well, guess what? They didn't give us the accounting of the profits, and that's not what the Constitution says. The Constitution says you can't take any payments at all from a foreign government without going to the Congress of the United States. It's not that you can't keep the profits from foreign governments. Do you guys understand what you're doing here? You're putting that
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair recognizes Mr. Timmon from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My colleagues across the aisle missed the point here. The Trump family has pre-existing businesses built over decades, hotels all over the world, and President Trump divested himself of control over those businesses to his children, and business arm's length transactions between foreign governments and between the Trump International Hotel chain, there's actually an arm's length transaction. They're getting hotel rooms, they're getting food and whatever from these hotels. So the difference is this. The Biden family doesn't produce anything. They don't have anything. They don't have hotels. They don't have services rendered. There are none. Hunter Biden has said that he was on the board of Burisma and he has no qualifications. They actually cannot document any service rendered by the Biden family, whether it's Jim Biden, whether it's Hunter Biden. So that's the issue. The issue is that the Biden family, all they have is the big guy and his policy favoritism, and that's why we're here. And I just think y'all are muddying the water, and it's not doing the American people justice.
Would the gentleman yield?
I yield back.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes, I will yield to.
I thank the gentleman. I do want to point out that, to the point that Mr. Timmons was making, that the operation of the Trump Hotel was a legitimate enterprise that was approved by this committee in 2013, before President Trump was elected to office. But prior to that, it was the old post office. It was losing $6 million per year. The turnaround was a plus $3 million that went to the federal government. And as Mr. Timmons pointed out, it was divested to the family, to the children. It was not run by the president.
Will you yield for a question on that?
I'll yield for a question.
Well, when you say it was divested, are you claiming that Donald Trump surrendered any ownership interest? Because he continued to own it. He put it into a trust for his sole benefit. He said the day-to-day management would be turned over to his sons, but he was still the beneficial owner of it, and he stayed involved, as we know, because he kept talking about all the business that was coming in from abroad.
Well, the gentleman's question is legitimate in the context that most elected officials put their assets in trust for their own benefit after they leave office.
But it was not a blind trust.
He should not be forced to divest himself of the asset, an asset that was approved by this committee.
No, I'm afraid not. You're referring to...
I'm reclaiming the time yielded to me by Mr. Timmons to point out that what is happening right here should concern every American citizen, because we refuse to investigate and prosecute corruption. We are constantly pounded about corruption in other countries, but we've got corruption right here that we do not. We form partisan sides on this thing, and we don't do our job. I've been here 9 years and 7 days and gone through multiple hearings in the Oversight Committee dealing with corruption, and it turns into a partisan battle when we ought to be trying to make sure that we restore the American people's confidence in this government. What Hunter Biden should have done, he should have presented himself in answer to the subpoena. I'm not trying to take sides in this. I want the evidence to speak for itself, and it will never speak for itself if we don't have people come before the committee as they're required to do.
Will the gentleman yield for a question? Would you yield for one final question?
I'll yield to the gentleman.
Thank you kindly. And thank you for the spirit and the substance of your remarks, which I think significantly uplift the tone of the conversation. You would agree with me that the Emoluments Clause applies to government officials, and presumably you would agree with me that Hunter Biden is not and has never been a government official. So this is about a relative of the president, right? So we have Donald Trump, who's collecting $7.8 million. At least it's probably 4 or 5 times that much, and that's just during the presidency. But he was president.
Reclaiming my time.
And he was president.
It's Mr. Timmons' time.
Ranking member, do you have any evidence that Donald Trump received any of this money you're alleging that was received by the Trump Hotel organization?
Yes, he bragged about it, and in fact, he returned what he called the profits to the government, which gave the game away.
So $8 million in revenue, of which you don't know what the costs were associated with that, and you don't have any evidence that the president actually received any of this money. By the way,
we've got all the evidence. Have you read our report yet, Mr. Timmons?
What is the amount of money that you allege he's received?
$7.8 million, and it's a tiny
true.
fraction.
That's just factually inaccurate.
Have you read our report?
That's revenue. It's not.
I beseech you to read the report. I'll read any book you want me to read, any poem, any ghost story, whatever it is. Read the report, please. Read the report.
Please.
My time's expired, Mr. Chairman.
All right, gentlemen's time's expired. Before I recognize the next member, since Mr. Raskin's into reading, I'd like to submit to the record the last bank memorandum, the bank memorandum that details the Chinese wire that went to Hunter Biden, then to Joe Biden. It's in the bank memorandum. This is substantive memorandum. This is the 4th memorandum. If you need the other 3, we will resend them to you.
Mr. Chairman, can I introduce something for the record, too, before we break?
Yes, but without objection, we entered in the 4th bank memorandum into the record. Now you have something, Mr. Raskin.
Yes, this comes from Newsweek. This is Republican Congressman Andy Biggs warns his party has, quote, nothing to campaign on.
All right, without objection.
I object.
So ordered.
Object has nothing to do with subject at hand.
Oh, well, it was very much discussed by the members today.
I still object.
Okay, could I call for a vote on that then, Mr. Chairman? Yeah?
Yeah,
All right, thank you. Let's get our members to vote.
We'll do a. All right, all those in favor of entering into the record a new story, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. No. It's
I
okay.
recorded vote.